May I please have a roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Ambrose,
Here.
Commissioner Duddick,
Here.
Commissioner Ivanov,
Here.
Vice Chair Gonska,
Here.
and Chair Leslie.
Yes, here. Can we please approve the minutes? I'm sorry, wait a minute, hold on. My apologies. Can I please have our Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, can we please take a minute to review the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from the December meeting.
Do I have a second? Three.
Oh.
It's December
Three.
11th, 12th, and 16th.
So I move to approve the minutes from the December special meeting, the December regular meeting, and the second December special meeting.
Second.
May I please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Duddick,
Yes.
Commissioner Ivanov,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska,
Yes.
and Chair Leslie.
Yes. Do we have any public comment for this evening?
We do not.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have any announcements?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and everyone with us here this evening. It's been a tough few weeks for our community, to say the least, for our community, our neighbors, and our colleagues. I just want to start by expressing my thanks to the entire rent control staff. During the wildfires, they truly stepped up, showing professionalism and dedication, making sure that services continue without interruption throughout the crisis. For residents, landlords, and anyone impacted by the wildfires, if you have questions about the local emergency order and its effect on housing laws, I encourage you to visit the city's webpage at www.santamonica.gov/topic-explainers/Palisades/fire. There you'll find the full text of the local emergency order, along with details about housing for evacuees and the suspension of the law that prohibits short-term rentals for displaced individuals. The page also includes information on the city's prohibitions against price gouging and housing accommodations. Of course, if anyone needs assistance, rent control information coordinators are available at 310-458-8751. And for those wishing to report price gouging, the city attorney's office can be reached at consumer.mailbox@santamonica.gov. I do want to be clear. Tenant protections relating to eviction and harassment are still fully in place. No tenant can be required to vacate their unit based on a request or threat. The rules for buyouts and owner-relative occupancy also remain in effect. On another note, I'd like to invite the community to get involved in the city's fiscal year 2025-2027 operating budget planning. You can share your thoughts through an online survey available in both English and Spanish through February 17th. The city will also be hosting 3 community meetings to give an overview of the budget and hear what the community's priorities are. Spanish interpretation will be available at all meetings. For more details about the dates and location of meetings and to take the survey, just go to the city's website at www.santamonica.gov. We will find the biannual budget link right on the landing page. Now, I'm delighted to introduce our new board secretary, Gilbert Portillo. Gilbert joins us from the city manager's office, where he provided administrative support starting in 2022. He was also one of the inaugural members of the city's 311 team and has previously served as a library services officer. Gilbert, welcome aboard and congratulations.
Thank you.
And also a special thank you once more to Mahogany Van Netty, our administrative staff assistant. She's joining us tonight as well, who served as the interim board secretary during this transition. Mahogany, we really appreciate all your hard work and dedication. Thank you. Finally, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and express my deep gratitude to Erica Leslie for her exceptional leadership as the board's chair. I truly appreciate her taking on the added responsibility and her ongoing support during my first year as executive director. So, Madam Chair, thank you for your guidance and service. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we please have a staff report on item 10A, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. This is an exemption for 2028 21st Street filed by Mr. Manuel Nelson. Mr. Nelson purchased this property back in 2015, and in January of 2016, he was granted an owner occupancy exemption of the property. Mr. Nelson failed to return the annual verifications form that were sent to him in 2022 and didn't dispute the notices of lapse that were sent to him in the subsequent year. So the exemption lapsed by operation of law. However, Mr. Nelson has reapplied for the exemption. The property meets the unit requirement, and Mr. Nelson is the sole owner. So the question before you is whether the evidence shows that he has provided sufficient evidence to show that he's lived on the property for at least 120 days prior to the filing of the application, which was November 14th of 2024. And as the record shows, he doesn't own any other residential property in the city. He provided utility, financial, and government records to show that he lives on the property. And the hearing investigator who went out to the property, since there were no tenants on the residence, also confirmed that based on her observations that the property is occupied by Mr. Nelson. So staff recommends that the board grant the exemption and adopt the proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law. One typographical error I'd like to make a note of. Finding 4 says the applicant submitted a deed dated February 27th, 2016. It's actually 2015. I just wanted to make note of that. And that's it.
Thank you. Does any commissioners have any? Commissioner Ambrose.
I did think that the applicant submitted more than enough evidence demonstrating that they have made this their principal place of residence for more than 120 days. I just wanted to note in my discussion some of my analysis for how I determined some of the records and weighing my analysis. I think that the electric, cell phone, internet, credit card, financial statements, driver's license, and dog registration, which I believe even you have to submit evidence to them to get your dog registration, was very convincing. Also, the hearing officer's report for visiting the site was also great evidence. I just also wanted to note that the water bill and the property tax and mortgage were less convincing to me because I feel that a person would be paying those bills whether or not they were living on the property. But nevertheless, I found that the applicant more than satisfied the reasonable standard for determining that they've been living on the property for more than 120 days.
Thank you. Any other board discussion? May we have a roll call vote, please? Wait, I'm sorry. May I have a motion? My apologies.
I move that we approve the application, that we grant the application and adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
I'll second that motion. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Dudek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ivanov,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska,
Yes.
and Chair Leslie.
Yes.
The motion carries.
We're moving on to item 10B1. May we please have a staff report?
Commissioners, this is an appeal of a decision that granted rent decreases to a tenant, Alexis Michelle Nelson, as a result of impacts from construction of an ADUs on the property. The owner on this, in her appeal, appears to argue that the decision should be reversed because the hearing officer issued her decision more than 120 days after its filing. As explained in the staff report, the 120-day decision is a directory one, not a jurisdictional one. And the remedy for any delay in issuing a decision beyond a directory deadline is a writ to the court to compel issuance of the decision. The owner never filed such a writ, and the point is moot since the decision was issued. The owner also appeals the decreases granted for loss of parking, the loss of patio, as well as for noise impact and utility shutoffs. All of those decreases are supported by substantial evidence. The decreases are within the range set forth in the board's regulations, and they can take into consideration the tenant's MAR. The owner also appealed the hearing officer's determination of the initial base rent and correct MAR for Ms. Nelson's tenancy. As detailed in the staff report, that determination reflects the free month rent that was provided during the lease's initial term, which is in accordance with the board's regulation, and the finding is supported by substantial evidence. Because the hearing officer's decision and her findings are supported by substantial evidence and in accordance with the board's regulations, staff recommends the board affirm it and the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the decision.
Thank you. So who wants to move discussion? Commissioner Ambrose.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for staff. There were a couple of parts about parking that I just wanted to clarify. First of all, there was some discussion about the landlord doing a separate contract for the parking, and that they were trying to sort of circumvent the rent control law by doing a separate agreement and calling it a different company. I just wanted to know if you could explain that a little bit, and then also if you could let us know if there are other instances that you've seen where landlords have tried to do this, perhaps with things like use of a pool or laundry facilities or a rec room, where they're charging extra for a tenant to use these services, and how that is against our laws.
So this specific property has had multiple cases that have come before you. And in those cases, this issue of the parking has been raised in each and every one of them. And the hearing officers have consistently found that just because that the landlord had a separate entity enter into a lease for the parking doesn't change the fact that what we're talking about is a parking amenity of a tenant on the landlord's property. And therefore, removing that parking amenity is a loss of that tenant's housing service and entitles that tenant to a decrease. And the same occurs here. That's this context in which I've seen this specific type of thing where there's a third party involved. There have been other cases in which landlords have attempted to charge for other housing services in violations of the law, and those are routinely addressed either by staff notifying the landlord of the law, or if they're raised within the context of a decrease petition, they're addressed in that manner.
I think also how I was understanding it was that because they did it as a separate contract, that they were trying to say that it was not included within the MAR, and therefore they were theoretically able to raise that $150 more than, say, the 3%, or it wasn't included within the MAR, so they could take it away as an amenity, or raise, or that it wasn't included within, say, the rent control law. Does that make sense?
In those cases, they would be liable for an excess rent overcharge, and so the tenant could file a rent petition. I would ask for those issues, I think the board can probably agenda, if you want to discuss that separately, I would just encourage the board to first focus on this particular case, and so that the record is clean in case we have to go up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ivanov.
I would just note that the appellant tries to make a violation of due process and abuse of discretion argument here. They attack the Santa Monica Properties decision that the board relies on, trying to argue that the Santa Monica Properties decision doesn't apply here, but they're not capable of offering any case law precedent, any sort of authority either refuting the Santa Monica Properties decision or any other authority just demonstrating that there was a violation of due process here. So in reviewing this decision, I didn't find any clear error, and I would be inclined to affirm this decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Ivanov. Now I have a question. As I reviewed this case, and we go to, well, basically, when the initial lease term was signed, or they initially signed it, and then they offered the garages separately from what was advertised, it's kind of like the old bait and switch. You have somebody come in for a certain unit and all these things are listed, but then they want to itemize each one as separate and a different fee for. Is that a consumer affairs violation?
So under the board's regulations, just the hearing officer's approach was this. You can add an amenity beyond what was in the lease subsequent to the signing of the lease. If it's a parking or a garage, it becomes part of the MAR and therefore is increased based on the increase in the MAR. And so here, that's what was done. And because that was added to the MAR, once it was taken away, then the MAR was decreased by that amount as well.
I understand that. I'm just saying, however, like in the future, when people are out looking for apartments or units, and they're advertised for one thing, and they're given something else, or the things are separated or itemized separately, is that a consumer affairs issue, is what I'm asking?
Not necessarily, and we would only be examining it under our laws.
Okay. Thank you.
Eric, I'm trying to press the button, it's not working.
Commissioner Ambrose?
I guess kind of piggybacking off that, but sort of a separate issue. So the tenant said that, so again, with the parking, had she have known that the parking was going to be eliminated because the ADU was going to happen about 2 years afterwards, correct? So I'm thinking about when landlords pull papers, for example, for construction, they are then required to let tenants know, like with disclosures, for example. But what about prospective tenants? Is there some sort of law that requires landlords to let tenants know, for example, that their parking that they're advertising is going to be demolished, and they're aware that it's going to be demolished by an ADU?
I'm not aware of such a law.
Okay. I do have one more thing to say. Also about the appellant's brief and what my colleague, Commissioner Ivanov, was saying about it, the theory or their argument not being valid. I also was confused about exactly what they were asking for. I mean, are they asking for us to overturn seeking for us to overturn the rent decrease for over $15,000 simply because it took more than 180 days to get the correct amount? I'm not quite understanding what exactly they were asking of us. And then they recognize that and say in their own brief that the correct recourse would be to have the petition for writ of mandate, and then they say that they will do that. So I'm just really kind of confused with the whole, what they exactly were asking for. So it was very unclear to me. That's just my comment. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, do I have a motion? Any other discussion?
I'll move that we affirm the decision and adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Dudek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ivanov,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska,
Yes.
and Chair Leslie.
Yes.
The motion carries.
We're moving on to our administrative items. Item 12A for our selection of chair and vice chair.
So the traditional procedure has been to nominate for the chair first, and then for the vice chair. So you, Madam Chair, will ask for nominations for the chair and see what happens there, and then there will be vote.
Okay.
Okay?
Look, I've seen this a couple of times, just a couple. May we have a nomination for the chair from our fellow commissioners? Commissioner Ivanov.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Gonska. Commissioner Gonska is committed to this work. Notably, what comes to mind is his leadership in increasing the ranges to keep up with inflation that tenants can recover for losses of various amenities when filing decrease petitions. You were instrumental in getting us to get that passed. So I don't think there's a better person for this role. So I'm very proud to support you.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
I think we're like all chomping at the bit to say, I'll second that. So can we have a roll call vote on that?
Yes. Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Dudek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ivanov,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska,
Yes.
and Chair Leslie.
Yes.
The motion carries.
And now we will move on to the selection of a vice chair and nominations.
Oh. I
Commissioner Dudek.
Yes, I would like to nominate Commissioner Ivanov. He has been an outstanding member of this commission since he was elected and is very dedicated. And I think he'll really do a great job as vice chair. And I wholeheartedly nominate him for the position.
Commissioner Gonska.
Yeah, I would echo that, and thank you for the kind words you said about me, Commissioner Ivanov. I think you've shown incredible leadership within the city, even before your time here on the board, so I'd be honored to serve with you as vice chair.
Okay. Can we now have a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Dudek,
Yes.
Commissioner Ivanov,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gonska,
Yes.
Chair Leslie.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. So Chair Gonska. I know. We can do it the next time. You good?
Yeah, you can close it.
Okay. As we, it's,
See a ceremonial passing of the gavel.
there's no gavel here.
The gavel's not here.
There's no gavel. I don't do no gavel.
I'm bringing the gavel back.
Oh, God. I am the gavel-less chair. So, in adjournment, not in my classic style, but seeing that I know that we have a rough road ahead as we have a new administration, I'd say that we are to support one another and do the best that we can by one another, be a little bit more kinder and a little bit more attentive, because we're going to need each other more than we ever have before. And with that, I adjourn.